Today on Legally Yes, Prince Harry has withdrawn his libel case against Associated Newspapers as Taylor Swift's stalker is arrested and Alec Baldwin was indicted on charges of involuntary manslaughter. Plus, Doja Cat's mom alleges her son physically abused her and the singer in a restraining order filing. And Sophie Turner has dropped the child abduction claims against Joe Jonas. We've got that plus so much more in today's Legally Yes. Everyone, and welcome to Legally Yes. I'm Christina. That's, of course, Nima Rahmani, President and CEO of West Coast Trial Lawyers. Hi, Nima. How are you?
Fantastic, Christina. How about you?
I am doing good. We've got some big news from Prince Harry, and he has withdrawn his libel case against the Associated Newspapers, which is one of 3 lawsuits he filed against major UK media publishers. So his lawyers alerted the Daily Mail saying that they filed a notice with the court on the deadline day for relevant documents saying the Duke of Sussex discontinues all of this claim. So Harry's lawsuit against the newspaper stemmed from a February 2022 article that questioned his efforts to retain publicly funded protection from the British government. The outlet claimed that Harry tried to keep the details of his legal fight a secret and that his aides helped put a positive spin on the situation. So was this a surprise for you that he dropped this libel suit, considering he just came off of a win?
Well, Christina, there were 2 very different cases. The
Sure.
win, of course, being the phone hacking and the invasion of privacy case. So now we're talking about a defamation case related to the prince offering to pay for law enforcement protection. So certainly a lot less serious in terms of the damages and really the effect on the prince and the family. And he's obviously been very litigious, but really the writing was on the wall here, and this is why. Cases of defamation in the UK and in Europe in general, they're decided by a judge. So when Johnny Depp lost his first defamation trial, it was actually a judge that decided it. Of course, here in the United States, juries decide defamation cases. So the judge in Prince Harry's defamation case allowed the defense, the newspapers, to put on the defense that they honestly believe that this was true. This is the honest opinion defense. And when it was clear that the judge who was going to be deciding the case was going to allow the defense to do this, I think the prince and his lawyers believed they were going to lose, and that's why they dropped this particular case.
This particular case. But he does have another case in the works, too. There's a lot going on with Prince Harry.
He has a lot of different cases against tabloids. So, this is just one that he dismissed, and he actually has to pay the legal fees of the newspaper as well. That's probably going to be hundreds of thousands of pounds. But he still has his other cases that are pending. But this particular case regarding this particular allegation of defamation was a loser for Prince Harry.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on over to Taylor Swift. This is a scary situation because her alleged stalker was caught outside her New York City apartment just 2 days after being arrested while trying to break into her home. A spokesperson for the New York Police Department told Page Six that an arrest was made after members of the community indicated that there was a person of concern whose identity has yet to be revealed in the area. However, it seems like his initial arrest wasn't enough to scare him off, as an eyewitness said that he was seen back at her residence just a few hours after he was apprehended. Earlier this week, the alleged stalker was seen hanging around her place yet again at around 3 p.m. local time. However, police did not take him into custody until about 6 p.m. So when somebody's dealing with a stalker situation like this that keeps coming back, what kind of measures do you have to take besides restraining orders and things like that?
Well, Christina, really the restraining order is the best measure to take because if someone violates the restraining order, they can be arrested and they can be arrested immediately. And that includes, any type of contact, right? Phone, showing up in person, email, text message, even social media. So it's very important. And I'm sure Taylor Swift has very good lawyers for her to get that restraining order. And this is why, especially in big cities like LA and New York, trespassing isn't considered a very serious crime. It may be a catch and release type situation or someone might bond out. So you really need that restraining order and a permanent one that lasts many years to prevent this person from making any contact. And if they try to, they'll be arrested.
Yeah, but definitely very scary. So I'm sure that will happen. All right. Moving on over to Alec Baldwin. He was indicted on charges of involuntary manslaughter for a second time in connection with the death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins on the set of his movie Rust. So we confirmed the news on January 19th that more than 2 years after she died at the age of 42 in October of 2021, after Alec fired a prop gun on set, which was loaded with real bullets. His attorney did say that they look forward to their day in court. and that he actually faces up to 18 months in prison if convicted. So initially, Alec was charged with involuntary manslaughter in January of 2023 and pleaded not guilty the following month. The charges were ultimately dropped in April of that year. So why are these charges coming up yet again?
Christina, I've gotten a lot of questions about this case because it's really been botched by the prosecution. So I'll talk about the first case and how we ended up here. So originally, prosecutors came out very aggressively. They charged Alec Baldwin with not only involuntary manslaughter, which has a potential 18-month sentence, but a 5-year firearms enhancement, which would have put Baldwin away for a minimum of 5 years in New Mexico State Prison if he was convicted. Well, it turns out that that enhancement was unconstitutional. It was retroactive. So Baldwin, who was very good defense lawyers, were able to get that stricken. Then one of the prosecutors in the case had to step down because of a constitutional separation of powers issue, because she was a member of the New Mexico State Legislature. You can't be prosecuting cases as a member of the executive branch as well. So when it was clear that Baldwin's lawyers were digging their heels in, litigating this case very aggressively, and that they weren't going to waive time, which means that they were going to assert their right to a speedy trial, the case was headed to a preliminary hearing, which is essentially a mini trial before the judge. The prosecution was not ready. They dismissed. And because no jury had been impaneled and sworn in, double jeopardy didn't attach. So this time around, what they did is they didn't go to a preliminary hearing. They decided to go to a grand jury. So a grand jury is a secret proceeding, and there the prosecution presents their case, but it's only the prosecutor. There's no defense attorney. There's no defendant. So grand jurors here are one-sided account of the case, and just by a simple majority, they have to find probable cause. So that's what happened here. And the prosecutors did this to get around that preliminary hearing, which they may have lost last year had they decided to move forward.
Wow. So what happens next for Alec? How does what's his defense going forward now? And considering it kind of fell apart last year, is that give him an advantage going into this, or is this two totally separate things now?
Baldwin clearly has the advantage here, and he's not going to plead guilty to anything. It's not just because he has a strong defense on the merits. He cares about his reputation. He cares about his career. So, if you look at the facts of this case, there are really three people who are responsible. The armorer, who is Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, she's also being charged with manslaughter. But she's the most responsible, in my opinion. She's the one whose job it is to maintain these weapons on set and to make sure they're safe. Then you have someone by the name of Dave Halls. He was the assistant director, and he's the one who famously or infamously gave Baldwin the gun and told him it was a cold gun. Now, he's important because prosecutors gave him a no-time misdemeanor deal, basically a slap on the wrist. And arguably, he's more culpable than Baldwin because he's the one that said the gun was safe, that either wasn't loaded or it contained blanks. And then, of course, you have Baldwin himself, who's still being charged with manslaughter. I believe that's overcharging the case. And we know that he has access and the resources to get some of the best lawyers in the country, which he has. So I fully expect this case to go to trial, and I wouldn't be surprised if he wins. Jurors love celebrities.
Yeah, no. Okay. So we foresee this going to trial then. This is not stopping anytime soon. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think so, because I can't imagine the prosecution giving Baldwin any type of deal and Baldwin taking one because he has such a strong defense here. But
no, definitely. You're right. All right, moving on to Doja Cat. This is an interesting story as well. So her mom, Deborah Elizabeth Sawyer, filed a temporary restraining order against Doja's brother, Ramon. And so in the filing, she also listed Doja as someone who needed protection from him. So TMZ reported that Sawyer alleged that Doja's teeth were knocked out by her brother, further claiming that he had given her cuts and bruises and destroyed and stole some of her property. She claimed that her son was verbally abusive toward Doja Cat in a very degrading and demeaning manner, and that he had made the singer feel unsafe and traumatized. She was granted a court order protection from Ramon, and a hearing is pending for a permanent restraining order. She also allegedly had a restraining order against her son in the past, but it has since expired. So the judge noted that the singer would have to file her own request for a restraining order, but her brother did speak out and saying that these allegations were false. He hasn't, or he said that he hasn't been in contact with the family in years. So this story has no merit. So this is what he's saying. So why is she doing this now? Is it because that restraining order expired, that's why she's going forward and trying to get another one?
Yeah, restraining orders do expire. You know, in California, they could expire after 3 years or 5 years, up to that period of time. So if there is still harassment, if there's still threats, if there's still violence, then that restraining order has to be renewed. And obviously, we have two different accounts of what happened. But from a legal perspective, you know, Doja Cat's mom can't get a restraining order on Doja Cat's behalf.
Right.
She's a grown woman. She's an adult. You can obviously get a restraining order on behalf of your children. So that was the right ruling there. And, you know, the other sort of important thing to note is, you know, being mean or being rude, that's certainly not enough for a restraining order. There has to be some sort of harassment, stalking, violence, or threats of violence.
So if he says that he hasn't had any contact with the family in years, will they still be granted this restraining order then?
Well, that's going to be up to a judge. So we have that mini trial where the parties go up, they testify, they're cross-examined, they present their witnesses and other evidence. So, you know, if mom is going to be able to get another restraining order, she better be able to prove that her son is having some sort of contact.
Got it. All right. And then finally wrapping up with Sophie Turner, and she has dropped the child abduction claims against Joe Jonas 3 months after reaching an amicable custody agreement. So attorneys for the former couple have asked a judge in their federal case in New York to dismiss her previous filing in which she claimed that Joe abducted their daughters amid their divorce. So back in September, she filed a lawsuit against her ex requesting to secure the immediate return of her children wrongfully removed or wrongfully retained per the court documents. And she claimed in the documents that Joe began the wrongful retention on September 20th, which he denied. So does this mean that they reached some sort of custody agreement, but is this the final stage of wrapping this up? And it seems like they are on a path forward in a good place.
It is, Christina, and we've been doing Legally Us for so long. We're really seeing the life cycle of a case now, right?
Seriously.
When in the beginning, the allegations are flying. People are filing lawsuits and complaints, and we had talked about this case because there was different jurisdictional issues. Obviously, they lived in Florida, New York, and the UK, and where were the kids going to live and where were they going to be raised, and the litigation ensued. But shortly thereafter, obviously, they came to some sort of agreement, and really, this is the end of a case when parties file a voluntary dismissal. They dismiss the complaint, they dismiss the allegations, and there's going to be some sort of settlement agreement, either formal or informal. And if for some reason the parties don't comply with it, then we may see litigation about actually enforcing that agreement.
Got it. But it seems like we finally have maybe a happy resolution between these two, because it got really ugly there for a minute.
It did. And I'm glad, for the kids' sake especially, if mom and dad can come to a resolution that's usually in everyone's best interest instead of dragging the kids through our legal system.
Definitely. Well, Nima, thank you so much for your expertise as always.
Thanks, Christina. I'll see you next week.
See you next week. For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.